Hey, folks, July 1st, 2024. We're about 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I just want to make a few comments here. And I first and foremost recommend people read the Supreme Court ruling on the president's presumed immunity. I think that if you read that, you'll understand the context under which the justices are speaking. And anybody that reads that and sees it and can grasp the context will see that is the intention of the founders. That is the intention of the separation of powers, as enumerated by the court today. Um, I'm on Facebook, and these people with just hundreds of thousands of followers are just out there spouting lies, saying that if the president commits a crime, it's legal because he's the president, and that's absolutely the opposite of what that ruling is saying. Okay, it doesn't say that at all. If the president were to rape somebody, if the president were to knowingly cover up a crime like Nixon did, if he's guilty of anything, he's guilty of that, right? Those are actions performed outside the enumerated duties of the office of the president of the United States, and therefore can be prosecutable in and of themselves. But the same argument has to be made when you look at duties that are carried out through the office. So duties that he's assigned because he's the chief law enforcement officer of the country. And he wanted that election investigated. Now, you could attach to that any motive you want, but it was an election that had a lot of peculiarities to it. And even if what was peculiar, even if what looked criminal wasn't criminal, the view that it was criminal is enough for him to investigate that. They ask people to perform duties that are within their power, or he believes are within their scope of authority. When he was talking to Pence and other governors, he has every right to ask those people to enumerate that power, to use that power to take these actions as president of the United States under a federal law. And a federal election is ruled by federal law. And ultimately, because the president is the chief law enforcement officer of the country, he can order the DOJ to investigate. And the DOJ should have no power to resist, as we see happen. But that's another story. So in the end, the simple point made by the court was that as long as the actions taken are under his enumerated duties as the president executing the office of the president of the United States, then you can't bring him up on any charges. They sent this back to the courts for the courts to review it. I'm sure the courts are going to do what they got to do to maintain their right, and the Supreme Court is wrong. But the Supreme Court is not, and I'm going to say this clearly, is not stating that any crime committed while president is immune. There's an immunity for any crime they commit. That's absolutely incorrect, inaccurate, not even close to what they're saying. The acts that the president takes under the powers assigned to him, which are vast, every act he takes in executing that is presumed immune. Period. End of story. That's all it said. It's very, very simple. And I hope you go and read this documents that were released and then come to your own conclusion. You could tell me I'm wrong. Show me where I'm wrong. You could show me where I missed something. Show me where I missed something. And let us both use our brains as thinking, sentient beings to understand these things that are coming in front of us, instead of being incompetent interlopers that want to hear the opinion of everybody else and create new theories and new opinions based on fucking things that don't hold any water in fact. Bringing up Richard Nixon at this time is just an idiotic argument. Nixon and the issue with Nixon have nothing to do with exactly what happened here with Trump. They're two completely different things. You are not immune as president to commit a crime. You're just not. Now, you can interpret his acts as criminal, but you can also interpret his acts as the supreme law enforcement officer that wants an issue investigated, resolved, dealt with. And so you can't know, and you can't question the man's motives, even if you think he's a dictator. You can't have that kind of power, or you destroy the office of the presidency. George Bush sent us to war. The first George Bush sent us to war, right? And then we went to war in Afghanistan. Right? They did that under what they deemed was the necessary response, carrying out the offices of the duties of the President of the United States. Whether you agree with those wars or not, the people that authorized those wars are immune because they did it as their official duty. Could they have been wrong? Could they have been lying? Could they have been? Yeah, they could have. But you can't prove that. And so, therefore, this guy shouldn't have to worry about whether you think that or not. And he executes the office of the president. He does his duty as he sees fit. And unless it's completely criminal, obviously criminal, like for here, I'll give you an obvious criminal thing. Trump brings actions in Arizona against the federal election so that he could hook up, he's going to commit a crime like rape, or he's going to rob somebody connected to this. And he behaves under what appears to be the enumerated powers of the president, and then commits a felony or some type of crime unrelated to his duties. That's prosecutable. He's not immune from that. But nothing he did here went beyond the duties of the office of the presidency. Therefore, boom, it's over. Now, I'm going to spend the next few minutes explaining something to you that you're not going to want to hear. But you need to keep listening because you need to consider this. I'm not thinking for you. I'm not telling you what to think. I'm thinking maybe you might want to consider this. But for those of you that think Trump is the victim, believe me when I tell you, okay? You're the victim. I'm the victim. We are the victims. We've been trained to be professional victims. Everything we do is what a victim does. We look out and hope to find help. We look out for our savior. We support the person being, what do you call it, vilified. And Trump is the ultimate victim who's teaching you to be the ultimate victims. You sit by in pins and needles. You talk shit, you point fingers, you argue with each other, you get frustrated, you get angry, you don't know what the hell's going on. And meanwhile, Trump the victim, Trump's in this lawsuit, that lawsuit, all these lawsuits, folks. And I've said this about many lawsuits when it comes to the federal or even state levels. There's two kinds of lawsuits. Lawsuits that are brought to condition you. Lawsuits that the people filing the lawsuits got to go through yoga exercise to even get a court to accept them, or they have to cherry pick a judge that'll accept the accusations, right? Those are there to continue showing you just what kind of a victim you are. And in Trump's case, it seems to be every single case they've brought against him has been done that way. And yet none of us question why are the government doing this? What is their motive? And their motive is to turn us into helpless victims that do nothing, that answer to the government, right? We know they participated in one way, shape, or form in January 6th. We know that girl was shot in the throat and killed. We know police were letting people in that building willingly, opening the doors, ushering them in. We know all of this. And what do we do as a group? Nothing. You see, we're the victims. Doesn't it show you just how much you better not stand up? You better not stand up. Isn't that what that message is? And you better not question us, because if you question us or you point out just what kind of scumbag criminals we are, we're going to do you what we did to Trump. Isn't that the message we're getting? And to think Trump is not involved knowingly with this, wittingly, just shows the lack of thought. I'm not even going to be rude. The lack of thought that you all refuse to apply to the situation. Facts that paint a story of him giving us to the Clintons, giving us to the deep state. Back in what was it, February, March, or April of 2022 or 2020? I'm sorry. I'm not even going to mention what it concerns. You know, right? Shut down, locked out, must do this, must do that, or you can't do this, you can't do that. He was a part of all of that. If you look, folks, and you think about what we've been living through, I'm telling you that the picture that's being painted, that the insanity that we're accepting, is that we're powerless victims. And I can't even express to you that there is no way, it's almost incomprehensible that we could be so wrong. We are so wrong that wrong doesn't even want to be associated with us as a group of people. A group of people in a modern time that has access to things and abilities that have never really, as far as we know, for the last 5, 6 thousand years, been available to just a basic, everyday asshole like me and you. And it's our ability to actually unite and exercise our power as the people. We have that today. We don't need an armed insurrection. We have the tools at our fingertips to do this. We could come together regardless of who you voted for, who you believe in, what religion you are, what you think about the weather, what you think about sexuality, what you think about anything. Doesn't matter. And we could literally start pointing at things that need to be changed to benefit ourselves. And in benefiting ourselves personally, benefit those that we may even dislike or disagree with. Okay? Without actually interacting with them directly. We have that power, that capacity every single day, every second of every day, 24/7, 365, until they decide to turn the internet off. The you and everybody you disagree with or don't like, and I would all benefit from certain things. And those certain things are things that are just not, they're being abused. One of them is your user agreements, your private data being sold, you being stalked by all of these companies electronically. That's a horrific situation. We shouldn't be involved in America. That shouldn't be allowed. Go do that somewhere else, bro. But if I'm going to conduct business with you, whether it be use your website or purchase something from you, my information that you collect from me is sacrosanct. You should not share that, sell it, manipulate it, give it to other advertisers. Okay? At all. As a matter of fact, you should just take that point of sale and move on. I run a business. I don't stalk my customers constantly with different offers, different this, that, but I don't do that. Could I? Sure. But there has to be a reasonable limit to that. And the fact that you have so much identity theft and credit card theft and all of these other things, if you think that that's happening because somebody put a car reader in a fucking gas pump because you saw that video on YouTube, you really are fucking helpful or helpless. Most of your personal data and that critical information that gets stolen and used to steal your identity or take your credit cards comes electronically off the internet. Huh. The idea that we all wouldn't benefit as a society, as a globe, but let's just worry about our own four borders, right? As a society, regardless of what you think, what you believe, and what you look like, the fact that we could all seriously benefit from that is lost on us, and none of us work to try to make that become a reality. None of us want to put in the time with their tiny little fingers on their tiny little keyboards to make the offer, the suggestion that we should get involved with user agreements and targeting companies with the removal of our service completely from them if they don't change their user agreement. Something that would be an incredibly instantly simple thing to do. We don't want to discuss any of that. We want to get into the Koberger case and argue about what a coulda, shoulda, reflections of Banfield, all kinds of different scenarios that you have no supporting piece of evidence to even be talking about that shit. At this point, in that particular case, you're still stuck with the preliminary hearing, not preliminary hearings, I'm sorry, the motions that are being filed and the documents that are being released. That's what you're limited to. That's all that should be discussed. Okay? Anything that connects to those facts. And your context should come only from that. Right? And now you can have an opinion based on the facts that differ from others. But there's nothing in the Bryan Kohberger accusations that point to an Aryan nation, that point to a frat club, that point to a grub truck, that point to a road or Banfield. None of it. There's nothing in the official filings or even the proceedings and even the arguments of the defense that have anything to do with any of that shit. Why aren't we spending our time on something productive, folks? Supreme Court ruling is something new. There's many more cases, many more rulings out there from other courts, district courts, state Supreme Courts, all kinds of different cases that really impact our lives. There's all kinds of different things besides user agreements we could all get around that would impact our lives. I mean, look at Africa. Africa basically provides all the stuff that you use to have the luxurious lifestyle. And believe me when I tell you, we live in luxury and compared to any of our ancestors and compared to many of the people on the earth. Luxury. And it all comes from the poorest nation on earth where their citizens are actually taken advantage of, and we allow that. We allow our products, base manufacturing, its products to make the products we enjoy. We allow them to engage with slavery. That's just crazy. That's just crazy. We don't speak up about that. You're not willing to pay more to give a little kid freedom? Come on. We're all better than that, but we don't want to talk about that, do we? Let's argue about Brian Kohlberger. He could have made a U-turn, right? Let's say Trump committed a crime and he's immune because he's the president. So now any crime a president commits is immune. Let's just make statements like that and cause discussions back and forth because we're all too fucking lazy or willfully ignorant to actually realize the potential that we have at our fingertips. That to me is always a message I'm going to keep sharing with people. It's probably the most important thing that people are aware of, but people just don't want to be the one to start it. When I bring this up to people to the last one, nobody's going to want to do that. They all say that. That's the response I get when I say, why aren't we getting together? Why do we care who you sleep with? Or if you're fat, if you're short, if you're black, if you're brown, if you're yellow, if you're white, if you're... Why do we let that bother us? You sleep with that one. You got purple hair. This guy believes the world's going to burst into flames from global warming. The other guy thinks the world's going to turn into a big ice ball. Why do you care what they believe? What does that got to do with the fact that you put yourself in danger every time you enter the internet? Every time your information gets shared, you're another step closer to having your shit stolen. Why don't you care about that? And that's why I really wanted to make this video, folks. The problem is us, and the only way to solve it is by us. And, I'm pro-US, which is us. I'm going to end it with that. I don't want to ramble on for any longer. But if you listen to this, thanks for listening. If you got anything from it, fantastic. I hope to see some of that. If not, well, that's too fucking bad.